My name is Kate, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to my husband Mask years. He is the same age as me and has been working here for years. We are now at different branches, by to be in the same department. My husband is a responsible person, admired by his subordinates. He's a bit vain and doesn't like to show his weaknesses to others. He was a confident, flashy, and mass man. His work performance was highly regarded by his superiors, and he was expected to be promoted without any problems. In contrast, I'm a rather low-key and inconspicuous type. I was honestly surprised when he pursued me, as we have opposite personalities. After dating for 2 years, he proposed with a large bouquet of roses. I had never been so loved by a man. I accepted his proposal immediately. I couldn't wait to start our wonder together. However, what we found were in-laws who lived with us. There was no prior discussion and to refuse, but my husband was adamant about living with them.
My parents are good people, so every will be fine.
He said, "We are so excited about having you here," and he passionately explained how much they were looking forward to having me there, so I couldn't refuse. We have been living with his parent home for the past 10 years. Life there was unimaginable when we married.
Kate, you forgot to clean the bathroom.
My mother-in-law would start nagging as soon as she finished making breakfast for everyone. This ritual happens every day,
I'm sorry.
I would say, but she would reply,
Just apologizing won't do. If you understand, go and do it right.
even though I had to go to work, I treated like a servant from morning. For the past 10 years, living with I've been forced to wake up at 5 to cook breakfast and clean. My mother-in-law, a housewife, has no time to do household chores herself, but she does. I rush through the morning chores, work, come home, and immediately start dinner. By the time I go to bed, I'm so tired that I practically pass out. This has been going on for so long, become weak, and often feel unwell. The cause is likely to be stress.
Do a proper cleaning so that your neighbors do not think you are neglecting it.
My mother-in-law would say as she sat in the living room eating breakfast.
If you don't finish quickly, you all for work.
She would add that the government has been very clear about its commitment to tackling climate change, and it is working hard to deliver on this commitment through a range of policies and initiatives. Even with this going on, my husband once stood up for me. My father-in-law would hide behind his newspaper and pretend not to see. Since moving in with my in-laws, I've been subjected to terrible mistreatment. The stress has caused my weight to drop drastically, and I now look unhealthy. My period stopped due to my sudden loss, and I couldn't get pregnant. Despite being the cause of this, my mother-in-law continued to blame me. Before getting married, I cared about being beautiful and healthy. Now, there's no trace of that. The stress from the mistreatment and shock of seeing my reflection in the make me feel depressed. I had become a completely submissive mother-in-law. I lost all motivation and couldn't bring myself to leave the house. It was during that time that I received news of my father's death. He had suddenly passed away in an act. I hadn't been back to my parents' house in a long time because my mother-in-law would criticize me for everything. I deeply regretted not visiting more hard that my father had passed away. My parents' home is about an hour's drive from my in-laws' house, so it's not far away. I asked them if they would come to my father's funeral.
My father's funeral is happening.
Well, we won't be going.
Just have your family there, okay?
The two of them cut me off before I finished speaking. I never thought they could be so helpful. I simply replied, "I understand," as trembling shoulders from anger, and many people attended my father's fur. He was self-employed and had connected with a lot of people. Everyone who came to the funeral showed how much my father was loved.
Kate, It's been a while.
You've lost so much weight. What happened?
My mother, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, was surprised by my gaunt appearance.
Oh, it's nothing.
You're not sick, are you? I can't bear to lose you, too.
My mother, who had just lost her husband, thought I had some disease and started crying.
I'm not sick, Mom. I'm fine. Don't worry.
I calmed my mother down, and we went to the waiting room.
Well, if you're not sick, what is it?
I recalled my interactions with my mother-in-law and husband. Even though they knew my father had passed away, they didn't say anything to comfort me. Anger bubbled up inside me, and I detailed my mother about my life with my...
Actually, I've been experiencing what might be called bride bullying. I'm just so tired.
As I looked down while speaking, she gazed up at me with a worried expression.
I'm glad you're not sick, but I can't either. Is that why you haven't been around much?
I nodded, and my mother handed me a paper.
Read it for yourself and think carefully about what to do next.
The paper she gave me was my father. My meticulous father had left a will. Something happened. It includes information about inheritance, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, probate, estate planning, and more.
I get a 790,000 inheritance?
That's what it says. You can decide how to use it.
I was shocked by the large amount. At the same time, I hoped that I could improve my living situation with my in-laws. With this, I can build a house and an in-laws home right away. My life seemed to be getting better, the inheritance my father left me. I went home to my in-laws' house and did housework as usual. On days when I have plans, the house gets messier than usual. It can't be helped since there's no clean. As I silently did housework, I thought about the 790 I had inherited from my father. I had resentment towards my mother, but I still wanted to be with my husband. I decided to be honest about the large inheritance and proposed that we leave my in-laws' house.
I have something to talk about.
I began speaking with my husband after our in-laws had gone to bed and we were alone.
Yeah, so it's about my dad. It turns out I'm going to inherit him.
Oh, really? How much?
Well, it's 790.
When I told him the amount, my husband was dumbstruck, as if he couldn't believe it.
What? Are you serious?
Yes, 790,000.
When he understood what I had said, delighted and said,
Wow, he left that much for you. That's so generous.
So, about what to do with the money.
Since he was in a good mood, I decided to bring up the main point. But before I could speak, he said, "Scoutrageous."
We need to transfer that money to my mom's bank account right away.
I didn't understand what he was saying. It was so absurd that I thought he was joking.
Wait, why? I inherited it. So that's not right.
As I laughed and spoke, he slammed on the table.
What kind of nonsense are you talking? A wife's money belongs to her mother.
He probably didn't even realize that he had done something ridiculous. Looking into his serious eyes, I felt frightened.
I'm sorry. I don't quite understand what you're...
All I wanted was to talk about building a house for the two of us, but he wouldn't let me and tried to inherit into his mother's property. That night, I was so shocked that I sleep. The next morning, as I was preparing breakfast, my husband and mother-in-law approached me with angry expressions.
So, Kate, I heard that you inherited 790,000 but said you wouldn't give it to me. What are you thinking?
She had already heard about the incident from her husband.
But I'm the one who inherited it.
Stop arguing and transfer it to my mom's account right now.
A wife's money is the family's money.
The two of them seemed determined to get their hands on the inheritance by force. No matter how much I resisted, I was blamed. Thinking that resistance was futile, silent, and my husband showed me a paper.
You're getting carried away just because you've got your hands on some money. What's with that attitude? I'm the one supporting you. If you don't change your mind,
That paper was a divorce form.
I've already signed it. Take this and go back to your parents. If you apologize properly, I might consider dropping the divorce.
I received the divorce form with my section completely filled out. I had never been supported in this. I paid the same amount as my husband for living expenses, and all the housework was my responsibility. I had never been taken care of. Yet the two of them always looked me. In the end, they even tried to take my father's money. If I stayed here, I might give in to pressure from the two of them, but this money was what my father had for me. I thought it was rather an opportunity, told to go back to my parents' house. Having completed the divorce form, she now had the power to make decisions about her future. I swore in my heart that I would not let down my father's inheritance, and I made a decision. That day after work, I went back to my parents' house.
I'm home.
Welcome back, sweetie.
I had a feeling you'd be coming home. My mother smiled gently and warmly welcomed me, tired from my experiences. The table was set with her home-cooked dishes. I couldn't remember the last time I had a meal made by someone else. As I took a bite of the warm meal, moved to tears by how good it all tasted.
Did you tell Mason about the inheritance?
Yes, and that's when things got complicated.
I told my mother everything that my mother-in-law had said. She was stunned by the shocking news.
The inheritance is yours, and it's to decide how to live your life from.
As tears streamed down my face, she put her arm around my shoulder. After staying at my mother's house week, I decided to return to my inn.
Well, I'm going now.
Take care.
I was no longer afraid to return to house. With a refreshed mindset, I headed to my in-laws' home.
Finally back, huh? Have you reflected on your actions?
My husband and mother-in-law were waiting for us, with their arms crossed.
Yes, I'm sorry. Please, let me live in this house again.
I uttered an apology that was only... Hearing this, my mother-in-law smirked.
Then hurry up and hand over the invoice.
Actually, the inheritance procedures are taking longer than expected. It's still not with me. It's a complicated process, so it will take another half a year or more.
It takes that long? Well, that's fine.
They seemed satisfied, thinking they had handed over their inheritance. But they continued to nag me about my mother's house for a week.
The house is a mess because you didn't do your duties as a wife. Clean it up quickly.
My in-laws' home was a mess after just a week, and it was unsanitary. It was actually impressive to make filthy in such a short amount of time.
Yes.
The old me would have been devastated by the state of the house, but now things were different. I didn't care about being bullied by my mother-in-law or being forced to do housework. I did the housework as ordered by her. 10 months later, it was my mother's birthday.
Well, we're going now. Make sure to keep the house clean.
She always went on a trip for her birthday, and of course they never took me.
By the way, did you receive it yet?
It's supposed to arrive today.
Well, isn't that perfect? That 790 is a present from my mom. I make sure to transfer it to her account before we return.
There was no way the inheritance would conveniently arrive on her birthday. My husband couldn't see through my... I didn't respond, but simply saw then a smile, saying,
Take care and have a safe trip.
Once they were out of sight, I began my plan in action. I had been waiting for this day for time. They would surely be surprised when they returned from their trip, but it was no longer my concern. I quickly packed my belongings from my in-laws' house,
Wow, this is amazing.
moving my belongings into my new apartment. In fact, I had built a house with my inheritance.
I'm so happy I get to live in such a beautiful house.
I had decided to invite my mother along with me. I am truly happy that I don't have to be bothered by them anymore. I sank into the soft sofa and felt, today is a celebration of our new home, my mother. We invited a chef to our home and had a luxurious day. The next evening, I received a phone call from my husband.
Hey, what's going on?
He couldn't understand what had happened since all his things were gone when he returned home.
I won't be coming back, so goodbye.
I tried to hang up because I didn't want to talk to him anymore, but I could hear my mother-in-law raising her voice on the other side of the phone.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Where are you now?
I can't answer that. You told me to clean the house, so things away.
That's not funny. Besides, you haven't transferred the inheritance yet. How many times do I have to say that a daughter-in-law's money is mine?
Huh? I'm single, you know.
When I answered that way, my screaming mother-in-law suddenly fell silent.
Single?
Well, I'm actually divorced. I submitted the divorce papers to my lawyer. We're strangers now. Goodbye.
I said that and hung up the phone. Imagining the dumbfounded mother on the other end, I couldn't stop laughing. My heart felt so light now that I had to do with that family. After that, my ex-husband called me several times. When I had time, I would purposefully call and allow the abusive words from my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law to flow. I recorded those calls from beginning to end. I decided to consult the police with recordings.
It's not uncommon for cases of harassment from an ex-husband. We will issue a warning before it becomes dangerous.
Fortunately, the police responded quickly when they were called to my former in-law's house to warn them. For my image-conscious former in-law, the police coming was damaging enough. Plus, a subordinate of my ex-husband lived nearby saw the police coming. Since my ex was a prominent figure company, the rumor spread rapidly. Furthermore, his subordinates in CC who did not like him started to exaggerate stories and spread bad rumors about him. Eventually, the rumor reached the dean of the college where I was studying.
So, I heard the police came?
I divorced now, so I don't know much.
You're divorced?
Yeah. The bullying from my mother-in-law, her husband's abusive words, were too much.
I spoke in a slightly louder voice those around me could hear. The gossip-loving employees heard this and spread the rumor even further. It didn't take long for my ex-husband to hear about it.
You've got quite a lot of bad rumors around.
What are you talking about?
I hate men who can't cherish their... And with such bad rumors going around, our reputation suffers too. So I decided to have you transferred.
The transfer order given to my ex-husband was a harsh one.
This place is...
It was the branch office in the reg, the worst performance. The area was called a landlocked area because there was no entertainment or anything of that sort around.
You understand what being sent here, right?
Everything he had built up until now collapsed, and there would be no further career advancement in the future. He accepted the transfer order and the countryside without being able. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she must have been shocked by her son's lowered standards and the fact that they could no longer be together. She became a complete shut-in and developed depression. It seemed she also had dementia, as frequently caused disturbances at home. My ex-father-in-law desperately tried to save his deteriorating wife. Even if not related by blood, she is an important family member. It was only natural that the ex-husband continued his harassing behavior towards me. Now my mother and I are living happily together. We even started gardening in our spa yard.
If I were still in that house, I would have found such a wonderful hobby.
Having a hobby has invigorated me. My body, which was once worn out due to stress, is now healthy. I am very happy to have cut ties with my ex-in-law's family